Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, The Deep Chapter and Israel and Palestine a History. Settle in for a calming tale, or skip to 025 for the series. In Canaan, between Egypt and Mesopotamia, a people forged Judaism, shaping the world. Join us to explore its ancient roots. Now let's return to 2000 BCE Canaan.
Setting the scene. Canaan, 2000 BCE. Imagine, standing on a hill in Canaan around 2000 BCE, the air carries the scent of olive groves and freshly tilled soil. Below, a patchwork of fertile valleys stretches toward the horizon, framed by rugged hills and desert fringes. Small city-states, Jericho, Megiddo, Hazor stand as hubs of life, their mud-brick walls gleaming under the sun. Canaan, spanning modern-day Israel, Palestine, parts of Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria, is no backwater. It's a crossroads of the ancient world. A bridge between the powerful pharaohs of Egypt to the south and the bustling empires of Mesopotamia to the east. Trade routes snake through the land, carrying goods like copper, cedar wood, and wine as far as Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, and the Nile Delta. Canaan's people are diverse, farmers tending barley and wheat, shepherds guiding flocks of goats, and merchants bartering in bustling markets. They speak Semitic languages, worship gods like Baal, El, and Asherah, and live in a world shaped by both local traditions and foreign influences. Archaeologists have unearthed clay tablets, seals, and pottery that reveal a vibrant, complex society, one that's literate, connected, and deeply religious. This is the crucible where the story of Judaism and the Israelite people begins, rooted in a land of opportunity, conflict, and cultural exchange. Why QAnon? The land and its significance. Why did QAnon become the birthplace of a religious and cultural identity that would shape world history? Its strategic location made it a melting pot. Positioned between the Mediterranean Sea and the vast deserts, Canaan linked major civilizations. Egypt's pharaohs coveted its resources and trade routes, while Mesopotamian powers like the Akkadians and later Babylonians saw it as a gateway to the West. This made Canaan both a prize and a battleground, fostering a dynamic environment where ideas, goods, and people mingled. The land itself was fertile, yet challenging. The Jordan Valley and coastal plains supported agriculture, with crops like olives, grapes, and figs. But droughts and invasions were constant threats, shaping a worldview where divine protection was paramount. This tension between abundance and vulnerability helped forge a religious identity centered on a covenant with a single protective deity, a hallmark of early Judaism, where it all began. The geography of QAnon's geography was as diverse as its people. The coastal plains hosted trade hubs like Byblos, linked to Egypt's papyrus trade, hence the Greek word for book Byblos. Inland, cities like Shechem and Jerusalem nestled in hilly terrain, offering natural defenses. The Jordan River connected the Sea of Galilee to the Dead Sea, watering fertile lands, but also marking a cultural boundary between settled farmers and nomadic tribes. To the east, desert fringes gave way to Transjordan, home to pastoralists like the Amorites. City-states were the heart of Canaanite society. Jericho, one of the world's oldest cities, boasted walls and a spring-fed oasis. Megiddo, with its strategic position on the Via Maris trade route, controlled commerce between Egypt and Mesopotamia. Hazor in the north was a major urban center, its ruins revealing temples and palaces. These cities were independent but interconnected, each ruled by a king or chieftain. Often under the influence of larger empires like Egypt during the Middle Kingdom, circa 2055 to 1650 BCE. What was happening? Society and culture, QAnon, in 2000 BCE, was a mosaic of ethnic groups: Amorites, Canaanites, Jebusites, and others. The Amorites, a Semitic people, were particularly influential, migrating from Mesopotamia and blending with local Canaanites. Their language and customs shaped early Semitic culture in the region. Society was hierarchical. Kings and priests held power, supported by farmers, artisans, and traders. Clay tablets from sites like Ebla and Mari show sophisticated record-keeping, including trade deals and religious rituals. Religion was central. Canaanites worshipped a pantheon led by El, the creator god, and Baal, the storm god associated with fertility. Temples like those at Ugarit featured altars and statues with rituals involving animal sacrifices and festivals tied to agricultural cycles. These practices influenced early Israelite religion, with El's name later appearing in Hebrew texts, for example, Elohim. However, the seeds of monotheism were not yet fully sown. Those would emerge later with the Israelites, which people shaped the story. The emergence of the Israelites. Who were the Israelites? And how did they emerge in this crowded landscape? The origins of the Israelites are debated, but archaeological and textual evidence suggests they were not outsiders, but rather a group that coalesced within Canaan. Some scholars propose they were pastoralists or disenfranchised Canaanites who banded together, possibly around a shared religious idea. The Merneptah Stele circa 1208 BCE, an Egyptian record, mentions Israel as a people in Canaan. One of the earliest references to them, the biblical narrative, written centuries later, describes patriarchs like Abraham migrating from Mesopotamia to Canaan. But these stories are more theological than historical. Instead, the Israelites likely emerged from local groups, possibly including Habiro, a term for nomadic or marginalized people found in ancient texts. Over time, these groups unified around a distinct identity, centered on worship of a single god, YHWH, whose cult may have originated in southern regions like Edom or Midian. How did Judaism take shape? The roots of Judaism lie in this Bronze Age world, but its distinct features monotheism, a covenant with God, and a sacred law developed gradually. Around 2000 BCE, Canaanite religion was polytheistic, with gods tied to natural forces. The shift toward monotheism likely began with tribal groups who elevated YHWH above other deities, a process called henotheism. This was not a sudden revelation, but a slow evolution, influenced by social and political upheavals. By the late Bronze Age, 1550 to 1200 BCE, Egypt's dominance over Canaan brought stability, but also exploitation, possibly fueling discontent among local groups. The collapse of Bronze Age empires around 1200 BCE created a power vacuum, allowing small communities to assert new identities. The Israelites emerging in the hill country of Canaan likely drew on Canaanite religious traditions, for example, covenant ceremonies, but adapted them to emphasize loyalty to YHWH. Stories of exodus and conquest, later codified in the Torah, may reflect these communities' efforts to define themselves against their neighbors. From A to Z, key elements of Canaan's role in Judaism's origins: artifacts, pottery, seals, and tablets from sites like Ugarit reveal Canaanite culture, influencing Israelite religion. Baal, the storm god's prominence shows the polytheistic backdrop against which monotheism emerged. City-states, Jericho, Megiddo, and Hazor were cultural and economic hubs. Divinity, El, and other gods shaped early religious concepts, later adapted by Israelites. Egypt, its influence over Canaan brought wealth, but also oppression, possibly sparking resistance. Fertility, agricultural cycles tied religion to the land, a theme in early Israelite worship. Geography, Canaan's diverse terrain shaped settlement patterns and identity. Habiru, possibly linked to the Israelites, these nomadic groups were socially fluid. Israelites, emerging from local populations, they forged a unique religious identity. Jebusites, one of Canaan's tribes, later associated with Jerusalem, kings, city-state rulers maintained order but faced external pressures. Language, Semitic tongues unified Canaan's peoples, including early Israelites. Merneptah Stele, early evidence of Israel as a group in Canaan. Nomads, pastoralists, contributed to the Israelite identity. Olive oil, a key trade good, symbolizing Canaan's wealth. Pantheon, Canaanite gods provided a religious framework for early Israelites. Quest for identity. The Israelites' distinct culture emerged from shared beliefs. Roots, trade networks connected Canaan to distant lands, spreading ideas. Settlements, hill country villages were likely Israelite strongholds. Temples, Canaanite worship sites, influenced early Israelite practices. Ugarit, its texts reveal Canaanite myths that shaped biblical narratives. Valleys, fertile lands supported agriculture and settlement. Walls, fortified cities like Jericho protected against invasions. X-roads. Canaan's location made it a cultural and commercial hub. Why? Yahweh, the God who became central to Israelite monotheism. Zeal, the drive for a distinct identity, fueled the rise of Judaism. Canaan in 2000 BCE was a land of contrasts, fertile yet contested, connected yet fragmented. Its city-states, trade routes, and diverse peoples created a fertile ground for cultural and religious innovation. The Israelites, emerging from this world, drew on Canaanite traditions while forging a new path centered on YHWH. This slow, complex process laid the foundations for Judaism, a faith that would endure through millennia. The story of Canaan is not just a backdrop, but a dynamic stage where geography, culture, and faith intertwine to shape a people and their beliefs. The land and its people, Canaan's geography, is a tapestry of contrasts. Along the Mediterranean coast, ports like Byblos and Ashkelon thrive, their harbors bustling with ships carrying cedar wood, wine and purple dye made from murex shells. Inland, the Jordan River waters fertile plains where farmers grow barley, wheat, olives, and grapes crops that sustain communities and fuel trade. To the east, hills rise into the Transjordanian highlands, home to pastoralists who move with the seasons. Beyond the desert stretches, a harsh but navigable frontier for nomads. This diverse terrain shapes Canaan's people. The Canaanites, a Semitic-speaking group, form the backbone of the region, but they're joined by Amorites from Mesopotamia, Hittites from Anatolia, and Jebusites in the hills around Jerusalem. The Amorites in particular leave a mark, their language and customs blending with local traditions. Society revolves around city-states independent hubs ruled by kings or chieftains. Jericho, one of the world's oldest cities, boasts walls and a spring-fed oasis. Gitto guards the Via Maris, a trade route linking Egypt to Mesopotamia. Hazor in the north is a metropolis, its ruins revealing palaces and temples. Life is hierarchical. Kings oversee trade and defense, priests manage religious affairs, and scribes record transactions on clay tablets. Most people are farmers, tilling fields or tending vineyards, or shepherds, guiding flocks of sheep and goats. Artisans craft pottery and bronze tools, while merchants travel far, connecting Canaan to distant lands. Yet challenges loomed. This tension between abundance and vulnerability shapes a worldview where divine favor is sought for survival. Culture and economy. By 2000 BCE, QAnon is in the Middle Bronze Age, a time of cultural and economic flourishing. Cities grow, their mud brick walls fortified with towers and gates. Urbanization transforms the landscape, with city-states like Shechem and Lachish becoming regional hubs. Trade is the lifeblood of this society. Merchants travel the Via Maris, carrying olive oil, wine, and Lebanon's prized cedar wood to Egypt, where it's used for ships and temples. Copper from the Negev mines fuels bronze production, while purple dye, extracted from murex shells, becomes a luxury export. Canaan's cultural achievements are remarkable. Around this time, an early alphabet emerges, likely developed by Canaanites or their Phoenician kin. Unlike the complex cuneiform of Mesopotamia or Egypt's hieroglyphs, this 22-consonant script is simpler. Paving the way for widespread literacy in later centuries, scribes use it alongside cuneiform for trade and diplomacy, as seen in tablets from Ebla and Mari. Artisans showcase QAnon's creativity. Pottery, often burnished with red slip, features geometric designs or scenes of nature trees, birds, and mythical creatures. Bronze tools, weapons, and jewelry reflect advanced metallurgy, with tin imported from distant regions like Afghanistan. Ivories and stone vessels, intricately carved, adorn elite homes. Tel Kabri, a palace, boasts Minoan-style frescoes, hinting at cultural exchange with the Aegean world. These artifacts reveal a society that blends practicality with artistry, local traditions with foreign influences. This vibrant economy and culture create a fertile ground for innovation. Canaan-esque connectivity through trade and travel brings ideas that will shape the religious and social identity of a group soon to be known as the Israelites. Religion and spirituality in Canaan. Religion is woven into every aspect of life. The pantheon is vast, led by El, the creator god, depicted as a wise elder. Baal, the storm god, brings rain to nourish crops, his myths recorded in Ugarit's clay tablets. Asherah, a mother goddess, protects families, while Anat, a warrior deity, embodies strength. Dagon, god of grain, ensures bountiful harvests. Temples like the massive complex at Hazor are focal points for worship. Excavations reveal altars, offering tables, and figurines, votive gifts to the gods. Rituals are elaborate. Priests perform animal sacrifices, pouring wine or oil as libations. Festivals mark agricultural cycles, spring planting, autumn harvest with music, dance, and communal feasts. The Baal cycle, a Ugaritic text, describes Baal's battle with Yam, the sea god, and his death and resurrection. Mirroring seasonal rhythms. These stories, etched on tablets, show a religion tied to nature and survival. Canaanite religion is inclusive, absorbing influences from Egypt and Mesopotamia. Egyptian gods like Hathor appear in Canaanite temples, reflecting Egypt's dominance. Yet, this polytheistic world sets the stage for a radical shift. The Israelites emerging from Canaan's hills will draw on these traditions' covenant ceremonies. The name El is Elohim, but transform them into a faith centered on a single God, Yahweh. This transition, though gradual, marks the birth of Judaism's monotheistic roots. Religion in Canaan is not just spiritual, it's practical. Farmers pray for rain, kings seek divine favor in war, and communities gather to ensure the God's blessings. This worldview, rooted in the land's fertility and fragility, will profoundly influence the Israelite faith. Political dynamics. Canaan's strategic location makes it a battleground for empires. During the Middle Bronze Age, Egypt's Middle Kingdom 2055 to 1650 BCE exerts influence, extracting tribute like olive oil and wine. By the Late Bronze Age, this control tightens. Canaanite rulers, often called mayors in Egyptian texts, serve as vassals to the pharaoh, managing local affairs while pledging loyalty. The Amarna letters, a collection of 14th century BCE clay tablets, reveal this complex relationship. One letter from Jerusalem's king, Abdi-Heba, pleads for Egyptian troops to fend off rival cities. The land is lost to the king, my lord. Another mentions the Aparu, a term for outlaws or nomads, possibly linked to early Israelites. These letters show Canaanite rulers navigating a delicate balance, loyal to Egypt, but competing locally for power. Egypt's dominance isn't unchallenged. The Hittites from Anatolia vie for control, leading to conflicts like the Battle of Kadesh, 1274 BCE. Earlier, the Hyksos, an Asian group, briefly rule parts of Egypt from Canaan, leaving cultural traces. This political flux creates opportunities for local groups to assert independence, setting the stage for the Israelites' emergence. Canaan's rulers are caught in a web of diplomacy and power. Their letters to Egypt reveal a land of alliances, rivalries, and resilience, a land where new identities can take root amid imperial pressures. Archaeological insights. Archaeology brings Canaan to life. At Tel Kabri, a Middle Bronze Age palace features frescoes reminiscent of Minoan Crete, evidence of far-reaching cultural ties. Ugarit's tablets, written in cuneiform, preserve myths like the Baal cycle, offering insights into Canaanite religion. Megiddo's massive gates and water tunnels show its strategic importance, while Hazor's temple and palace ruins reveal a thriving metropolis. Smaller finds tell human stories. The Gazer calendar, a limestone tablet, lists agricultural seasons: 2 months of planting, 2 months of late sowing, showing the rhythm of rural life. At Lachish Straka, inscribed pottery shards document administrative tasks. Tombs on the Mount of Olives contain grave goods pottery, jewelry hinting at beliefs in the afterlife. Genetic studies add depth. A 2020 analysis of 73 individuals from Bronze Age sites shows Canaanites descended from local Neolithic populations and migrants from the Zagros region. Modern Lebanese share nearly 90% of their DNA with these ancient Canaanites, suggesting continuity despite biblical claims of their destruction. This evidence paints a picture of a resilient, interconnected society. These artifacts and studies reveal a Canaan that was vibrant, diverse, and enduring a foundation for the cultural and religious shifts that would follow. The role of women in QAnon play vital roles, though their status varies. In elite families, women own property or engage in trade, as seen in Ugaritic texts. Queens and priestesses wield influence, leading rituals or advising rulers. In common households, women manage homes, raise children, and produce textiles, a key economic activity. Clay figurines of female deities like Asherah suggest women's association with fertility and domesticity. Yet Canaan is patriarchal. Men hold most political power, and women's roles are often tied to family or religion. Still, goddesses like Asherah and Anat highlight the reverence for female divinity, influencing later Israelite views of divine roles, though adapted to fit a monotheistic framework. Women's contributions, economic, social, and spiritual, are woven into QAnon's fabric, shaping the cultural legacy inherited by the Israelites. Art and architecture. Canaanite architecture reflects both function and grandeur. Homes are mud brick, with flat roofs and central courtyards for family life. Palaces and temples, like those at Hazor, feature stone foundations and ornate designs. Del Cabre's frescoes with Aegean-inspired motifs show artistic exchange. Fortifications, walls, towers, and gates protect cities like Arad, with semicircular bastions. Pen Museum. Art is equally sophisticated. Gold earrings, amulets, and carved ivories adorn the elite. Courts. Pottery evolves from red slip designs in the Middle Bronze Age to bichrome patterns later. These creations reflect a society that values beauty and craftsmanship. Influencing Israelite material culture, QAnon's art and architecture are testaments to its creativity, blending local and foreign styles that will echo in the Israelite world. The Late Bronze Age collapse around 1200 BCE. The Bronze Age world collapses. Cities across the eastern Mediterranean, Hattusa, Ugarit, Megiddo, burned. The Sea Peoples, a mysterious coalition of raiders, are often blamed. Egyptian texts describe their attacks by land and sea, possibly driven by drought or overpopulation. Ramses III repels them, as shown in reliefs at Medinet Habu, but Egypt's power wanes. In Canaan, cities like Hazor and Lachish are destroyed, and Egypt's grip loosens. Settlement patterns shift. Urban centers give way to small, unfortified villages in the hill country. The Merneptah Stele 1208 BCE mentions Israel as a people in Canaan, one of the earliest references. This chaos creates a vacuum, allowing new groups, including the Israelites, to emerge. The birth of Judaism. The Israelites likely emerged from within Canaan pastoralists, farmers, or marginalized groups, like the Aparu. Unified by faith in Yahweh, scholars suggest they were not outsiders but locals who coalesced around a shared religious identity. Wikipedia. The biblical narrative of an exodus from Egypt may preserve a kernel of truth, but is likely a later national saga. Early Israelite religion borrows from Canaanite traditions. The name El becomes Elohim, and covenant rituals echo Canaanite treaty. Yet, the Israelites diverge, emphasizing Yahweh as their sole God, a shift toward monotheism. Archaeological evidence from hill country sites shows distinct practices, like avoiding pork, suggesting a unique identity. Still, continuity persists. Pottery and architecture remain Canaanite in style. The covenant, a binding agreement with Yahweh, becomes central, promising protection in exchange for loyalty. This concept, rooted in Canaan's treaty traditions, evolves into a theological cornerstone. By the Iron Age, Israelite religion crystallizes, rejecting Baal and Asherah for a faith that emphasizes ethical monotheism, shaping Judaism's enduring legacy. Judaism's birth is a slow transformation, drawing from Canaan's rich heritage while forging a new path. It's a story of adaptation, resilience, and faith. Canaan, in the Bronze Age, was a land of vitality and flux, where trade routes, temples, and empires shaped a vibrant society. From its fertile valleys and fortified cities emerged the Israelites, a people who transformed Canaanite traditions into a revolutionary faith. Genetic studies show the Canaanites' legacy lives on in modern populations, a testament to their enduring presence. This small region at the crossroads of history gave birth to Judaism, a faith that would inspire nations and shape the world for millennia. Let's deep dive in Judaism. The Birth of Judaism. Abraham and the Covenant around 2000 BCE. In the vibrant crossroads of Canaan, a man named Abraham originally, Abram stepped into history as the patriarch who would lay the foundation for Judaism. Revered as Avraham Avinu, or our father Abraham, he is celebrated as the first Jew, the one who rejected the polytheistic norms of his time to worship a single God. Through a sacred covenant with God, Abraham established a relationship that would define the Jewish people as God's chosen, bound by promises of land, descendants, and blessings. This covenant, detailed in the Hebrew Bible's book of Genesis, marks the birth of Judaism, shaping its theology, identity, and enduring connection to the land of Israel. While Abraham's historical existence is debated, his story reflects the cultural and religious dynamics of the Bronze Age and continues to resonate in Jewish thought and practice today. Abraham, the patriarch of Judaism, Abraham is a towering figure in Judaism, regarded as the first patriarch and the progenitor of the Jewish people. According to Genesis, he was born in Ur of the Chaldees, city in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, where his father Terah was involved in idol worship. Jewish tradition, as recounted in Midrash, describes Abraham's early rejection of idolatry, including a story where he smashed his father's idols and was miraculously saved from a fiery furnace by Nimrod. Highlighting his commitment to monotheism, God called Abraham to leave his homeland and journey to Canaan, a land promised to him and his descendants, Genesis 12, 1-3. This act of obedience, leaving behind all he knew, established Abraham as a model of faith. His name was changed from Abram, meaning exalted father, to Abraham, father of many, reflecting God's promise to make him the ancestor of numerous nations, Genesis 17-5. In Judaism, Abraham is known as Avraham Avinu, symbolizing his role as both the biological and spiritual father of the Jewish people. His story is central to Torah portions such as Lech, Lecha, Ve'era, Chaye, Sarah, and Toledo, and he is often invoked alongside Isaac and Jacob as part of the divine title, Elohe, Abraham. Elohe Yitzchak, Elohe Yaakov. God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob. Abraham's significance extends beyond Judaism to Christianity and Islam, where he is also revered as a prophet and patriarch. His hospitality, faith, and willingness to sacrifice his son Isaac or Ishmael in Islamic tradition underscore his role as a universal figure of devotion. The Covenant. A sacred agreement, the covenant between God and Abraham is the cornerstone of Judaism, establishing a unique relationship between God and the Jewish people. It is detailed in several key passages in Genesis. Genesis 12:2, 1-3, God calls Abraham to leave his homeland for Canaan, promising to make him a great nation, bless him, and bless all nations through him. This introduces the themes of land, descendants, and universal blessing. Genesis 15 Brit Bean Habitarim, Covenant of Parts. After Abraham's victory over 4 kings to rescue his nephew Lot, God reassures him of his promises. Abraham, seeking a sign, performs a ritual where he divides 3 heifers, 3 goats, and 3 rams, placing their parts opposite each other. A smoking furnace and firebrand pass between them, symbolizing God's commitment. God promises that Abraham's descendants will be enslaved but redeemed and will inherit Canaan. Genesis 17. At age 99, Abraham receives the covenant of circumcision, Brit Milah. God changes his name from Abram to Abraham and commands that all males in his household be circumcised as a sign of the eternal covenant. This ritual is to be performed on Jewish boys on the 8th day after birth, a practice that continues today. The covenant has 3 main components. Land. God promises Canaan as an everlasting possession for Abraham's descendants. From the river of Egypt to the Euphrates, Genesis 15:18-21. Descendants. Abraham's offspring will be as numerous as the stars, forming a great nation, Genesis 15-5. Blessing and redemption. God will bless Abraham and his descendants, making them a blessing to all nations, Genesis 12-3. The covenant is considered unconditional, meaning God's promises are eternal, though obedience to his laws is necessary to fully realize its blessings. Circumcision remains a physical and spiritual symbol of inclusion in this covenant, marking the Jewish people as God's chosen. Historical and cultural context. Abraham's story is set in the Bronze Age circa 2000 BCE, a time when Canaan was a vibrant region connecting the empires of Egypt and Mesopotamia. City-states like Jericho, Megiddo, and Hazor thrived as trade hubs along routes like the Via Maris, facilitating the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultures. The region was home to diverse Semitic peoples, including Canaanites, Amorites, and Hittites, who practiced polytheistic religions centered on gods like El-Baal and Asherah. While the biblical narrative places Abraham in this period, his historicity is debated. Key early 20th century archaeologists like William F. Albright argued that the patriarchs were real or composite figures from the 2nd millennium BCE, supported by similarities between Genesis and ancient Near Eastern practices, such as covenants and circumcision. For example, the name Abram appears in texts from Mari as Abbrbm, and migration patterns from Mesopotamia to Canaan align with Abraham's journey from Ur to Haran to Canaan, Genesis 11:31. However, since the 1970s, scholars like Thomas L. Thompson, The Historicity of the Patriarchal Narratives, 1974, and John Van Seters, Abraham in History and Tradition, 1975, have viewed the patriarchal narratives as late literary constructs from the Persian period 520 to 320 BCE. These scholars suggest the stories were composed to address tensions between Jewish communities during the Babylonian exile and the return to Judah, serving as theological rather than historical accounts. Another hypothesis links Abraham to the 13th century BCE Raham tribe, with a possible reference in the 10th century BCE Bubostite portal inscription of Pharaoh Shoshank I, which mentions a fortress of Abraham. Despite these debates, the Genesis narratives reflect the cultural milieu of the Bronze Age, including covenant rituals and the importance of land and lineage. The covenant structure mirrors ancient Near Eastern treaties, particularly the royal grant type, where a suzerain rewards a loyal vassal, as seen in God's promises to Abraham. Theological significance: the covenant with Abraham is a foundational pillar of Judaism, establishing key theological concepts. Monotheism. Abraham's rejection of idolatry in favor of one God set Judaism apart from the polytheistic religions of Canaan, laying the groundwork for ethical monotheism. Chosen people. The covenant designates the Jewish people as God's chosen, tasked with living according to his laws and serving as a light unto the nations. Covenant relationship. The agreement emphasizes a reciprocal relationship where God provides protection and blessings, and the Jewish people respond with obedience and faith. Eschatological hope. The covenant of parts, Genesis 15, foretells the enslavement and redemption of Abraham's descendants, fulfilled in the Exodus from Egypt and the conquest of Canaan under Joshua. Jewish tradition holds that the full promise of the land will be realized with the coming of the Moshiach Messiah. The covenant's symbolism is rich. The animals in the covenant of parts represent sacrifices in the Holy Temple. The patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the exiles under Babylon, Persia, and Greece. The turtle dove and young bird left undivided symbolize the Jewish nation's unity despite persecution. The birds of prey that Abraham drives away signify nations that attempt to destroy the Jews but ultimately fail. Archaeological and genetic insights. Archaeological evidence from Bronze Age Canaan provides context for Abraham's story. Though no direct evidence confirms his existence, sites like Ugarit and Mari reveal texts and practices that parallel the Genesis narratives, such as covenant rituals and the use of names like Abram. The Gezer calendar, a limestone tablet listing agricultural seasons, reflects the rural life described in Abraham's time, while fortifications in Megiddo and Hazor highlight Canaan's strategic importance. Genetic studies offer further insight. A 2020 study of 73 individuals from Bronze Age Canaanite sites shows continuity between ancient Canaanites and modern populations, particularly the Lebanese, suggesting that the Canaanites were not entirely displaced, as some biblical accounts imply. Science Addirect, 2020. This supports the idea that the Israelites, including Abraham's descendants, emerged from within Canaan's cultural and genetic milieu. Contemporary relevance and debates. The covenant's promise of the land of Canaan remains a contentious issue. Many Jews view the establishment of Israel in 1948 as a partial fulfillment of God's promise. But this has led to conflicts with Arab nations and Palestinians, who also claim historical ties to the land. The theological significance of the covenant continues to shape Jewish identity, with debates over its interpretation in modern political and religious contexts. Scholars also debate the covenant's nature. While some view it as a theological narrative meant to unify Jewish identity during the Persian period, while others see it as rooted in earlier oral traditions reflecting Bronze Age realities. These discussions highlight the complexity of interpreting ancient texts in light of modern scholarship. The birth of Judaism is intricately tied to Abraham and the covenant he established with God around 2000 BCE as the first patriarch. Abraham's faith and obedience set the stage for a monotheistic religion that would define the Jewish people as God's chosen. The covenant, with its promises of land, descendants, and blessings, remains a cornerstone of Jewish theology, law, and identity. While the historicity of Abraham is debated, his story reflects the cultural and religious dynamics of Bronze Age Canaan, drawing on practices like covenants and circumcision. The covenant's enduring impact is evident in Jewish rituals like Brit Milah, the connection to the land of Israel, and the hope for a messianic future. Abraham's legacy, as Avraham Avinu, continues to inspire Jewish faith and practice, making him a timeless figure in the story of Judaism. The Israelites in Canaan, from tribes to kingdoms, it's 1200 BCE, and the land of Canaan hums with change. In the hills, a people called the Israelites are carving out a new identity. They are not yet a nation, but a loose confederation of tribes bound by faith in a single God, Yahweh. This is a land of contrasts, fertile valleys and desert fringes, bustling trade routes and fortified cities. Here, between the mighty empires of Egypt and Mesopotamia, the Israelites will rise from scattered tribes to a powerful kingdom, only to face division and decline. This is their story, a saga of faith, struggle, and triumph in the heart of the ancient world. The emergence of the Israelites around 1200 BCE. Canaan is a patchwork of peoples: Canaanites, Amorites, Philistines, and now a group called the Israelites. The Hebrew Bible tells of their origins: enslaved in Egypt, freed by Moses in a dramatic exodus, and wandering the wilderness for 40 years before entering Canaan. Yet, history is less certain. No Egyptian record confirms a mass exodus, but clues hint at their presence. The Amarna letters, diplomatic texts from 1400 BCE, mention the Habiru nomadic outcasts or rebels in Canaan, possibly linked to the early Hebrews. More striking is the Merneptah stele, an Egyptian victory monument from 1207 BCE. It boasts of Pharaoh Merneptah's conquests, naming Israel as a people in Canaan, the earliest hard evidence of their existence. Who were these Israelites? It's likely not invaders, but locals, pastoralists, farmers, or marginalized groups who coalesced in Canaan's central hills. Archaeology paints a picture. Small, unfortified villages like those at Khirbet Radana emerge in the highlands, distinct from the coastal cities of the Canaanites and Philistines. These settlers use simple pottery, avoid pork, a dietary marker later central to Jewish land, build modest homes. They are the 12 tribes named after the sons of Jacob, also called Israel in the Bible: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, and others, bound not by a king, but by a shared faith in Yahweh. Their faith sets them apart. While Canaanites worship a pantheon Baal, El Ashir with idols and elaborate temples, the Israelites revere Yahweh, a god tied to the wilderness, perhaps from regions like Midian or Edom. An altar at Mount Ebal, dated to around 1200 BCE, uncovered by archaeologist Adam Zertel, suggests an early Israelite religious site. Unlike Canaanite shrines, it lacks idols, hinting at a shift toward a new kind of worship, one that will evolve into monotheism. But life is not peaceful. The Israelites clash with neighbors, especially the Philistines, seafaring people from the Aegean who settled Canaan's coast around the same time. Armed with iron weapons, the Philistines dominate cities like Gaza and Ashkelon, threatening the hill country tribes. These conflicts forge the Israelites' resilience, pushing them toward unity. The time of the Judges. From 1200 to 1000 BCE, the Israelites live as a loose confederation. Not a nation, but a network of tribes. The Hebrew Bible calls this the era of the Judges. Charismatic leaders like Deborah, Gideon and Samson, who rise to unite tribes against threats. Deborah, a prophetess, leads a coalition to defeat Canaanite forces at Mount Tabor. Samson battles Philistines with legendary strength. These stories, found in the Book of Judges, blend history and legend, but they reflect a real struggle for survival in a fractured land. Archaeological evidence supports this picture. Sites like Shiloh, where a sanctuary may have housed the Ark of the Covenant, show religious activity. The absence of grand palaces or fortifications in these hill country villages suggests a decentralized society, reliant on local leaders rather than a king. Yet, the tribes share a common identity, centered on Yahweh and sacred sites like Mount Ebal or Shiloh, where they gather for festivals and sacrifices. The Philistines pose the greatest threat. Their coastal strongholds Gaza, Ashdod, Ekronor, urban powerhouses with advanced technology. Excavations at Tel Safi, likely biblical Gath, reveal Philistine pottery with Aegean designs, evidence of their foreign origins. The Israelites, armed with bronze and outnumbered, rely on guerrilla tactics and faith to resist. This pressure, coupled with internal rivalries among tribes, sets the stage for a dramatic change. The rise of a king, the United Kingdom. Saul, David, and Solomon. Around 1000 BCE, the Israelites demand a king to unify them against enemies like the Philistines. According to the Bible, Samuel, a prophet and judge, anoints Saul, a warrior from the tribe of Benjamin, as the first king of Israel. Saul rallies the tribes, winning battles but struggling to maintain control. His reign is turbulent, marked by internal dissent and ongoing Philistine threats. Then comes David, a shepherd from Bethlehem, who rises to fame by slaying the Philistine giant Goliath, as told in 1 Samuel. Around 1000 to 960 BCE, David becomes king, transforming the Israelites into a true kingdom. He captures Jerusalem, a Jebusite stronghold in the hills, and makes it the capital, neutral city uniting northern and southern tribes. The Tel Dan Stele, a 9th century BCE inscription found in northern Israel, mentions the House of David, offering rare archaeological evidence that David was a historical figure, not just a legend. David's reign is a golden age. He defeats Philistines, Moabites, and Ammonites, expanding Israel's borders from the Negev desert to the Euphrates River. His court in Jerusalem becomes a hub of administration and culture. Excavations in the city of David reveal a stepped stone structure, possibly part of his palace, showing urban growth. David also brings the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, making it the spiritual center of the Israelites, solidifying their identity around Yahweh. David's son Solomon, reigning around 960 to 930 BCE, takes the kingdom to new heights. The Bible describes Solomon as a wise king who builds the first temple in Jerusalem, a magnificent structure of cedar, stone, and gold. Housing the Ark and serving as the heart of Jewish worship, while no direct remains of the temple have been found due to later destruction. The scale of Solomon's projects aligns with archaeological evidence of increased trade and wealth. Khirbet Qeiyafa, a fortified site from the 10th century BCE, shows advanced construction, possibly linked to Solomon's administration. Solomon's reign is a high point. Trade flourishes: horses from Egypt, cedar from Lebanon, and gold from Ophir, possibly Arabia. The kingdom stretches from modern-day Lebanon to the Red Sea, a regional power. Solomon's wisdom, as in the story of judging between two mothers, becomes legendary. Yet, his heavy taxes and forced labor stirred discontent among the tribes, sowing seeds of division. The kingdom splits. Solomon's death around 930 BCE marks the end of the United Kingdom. His son Rehoboam inherits the throne, but his harsh policies alienate the northern tribes. Led by Jeroboam, a former official, 10 tribes break away to form the northern kingdom, called Israel, with its capital at Samaria. The southern kingdom, Judah, remains loyal to Rehoboam, keeping Jerusalem and the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. The split weakens both kingdoms. The northern kingdom, Israel, is richer and more populous, with fertile lands and trade routes. Samaria, built on a hilltop, becomes a thriving capital. As excavations reveal a palace, ivory carvings, and a water system. But Israel rejects Jerusalem's temple, setting up rival shrines at Bethel and Dan, a move the Bible condemns as idolatry. Judah, centered on Jerusalem, clings to the Davidic dynasty and the temple. The House of David endures, as confirmed by inscriptions like the Teldon stele and possibly the Mekia stele from Moab. Yet Judah is smaller, less prosperous, and vulnerable. Both kingdoms now face new threats: Egypt to the south, Aram to the north, and later, the rising Assyrian Empire. The division of Israel and Judah marks a turning point. Once a united people under David's banner, the Israelites are now two nations, each forging its own path. Their faith in Yahweh remains, but rivalries and external pressures will test their resilience in the centuries ahead. Legacy and archaeological insights. Archaeology brings this era to life. The Merneptah stele confirms Israel's presence by 1207 BC. The Teldon stele, found in 1993, mentions the House of David, linking the biblical king to history. Mount Ebal's altar, dated to 1200 BCE, suggests early Israelite worship distinct from Canaanite practices. Khirbat Qiyyafa's 10th century fortifications point to a centralized state under David or Solomon. Samaria's ruins, with their luxury goods, reflect the northern kingdom's wealth, yet gaps remain. The Exodus lacks direct Egyptian evidence, and some scholars, like Israel Finkelstein, argue the United Kingdom was smaller than the Bible suggests, more a chiefdom than an empire. Others, like Yigal Yadin, see evidence of Solomon's grandeur in Megiddo's gates. Genetic studies, like a 2020 analysis of Canaanite DNA, show continuity between ancient Canaanites and modern populations, suggesting the Israelites emerged from local groups, not as outsiders. Science Direct, 2020. These finds weave a complex tapestry. The Israelites' journey from tribes to kingdoms reflects resilience, faith, and adaptation in a turbulent land. Their story, rooted in Canaan's hills, lays the foundation for Judaism's enduring legacy. From scattered tribes in Canaan's hills to a united kingdom under David and Solomon, the Israelites forged a new identity. Their faith in Yahweh, their struggles against rivals, and their sacred temple in Jerusalem shaped a people and a religion that would endure. Though the kingdom split, the story of the Israelites rooted in faith and resilience continues to echo. From the ancient hills of Canaan to the world today, the first exiles. Why the Jews left Canaan? It's 722 BCE, and the land of Canaan, once home to a united Israelite kingdom, is unraveling. The northern kingdom of Israel falls to the iron fist of the Assyrian Empire. Thousands are torn from their homes, scattered across distant lands, their fates fading into mystery as the lost tribes. A century later, Judah, the southern kingdom, faces a similar tragedy. Jerusalem burns, the first temple crumbles, and the Jews are marched into exile in Babylon. Yet, from this devastation, a people's faith grows stronger, their identity reshaped in the fires of loss. This is the story of the first exiles, why the Jews left Canaan, how they survived, and how their journey began a global legacy: the Jewish diaspora, the Assyrian conquest, and the lost tribes by 722 BCE, the northern kingdom of Israel. Home to 10 of the 12 tribes, is a shadow of its former glory. Once a prosperous realm under kings like Jeroboam II, its capital at Samaria now faces the Assyrian Empire, a war machine from modern-day Iraq, renowned for its brutal efficiency. The Assyrians, led by King Sargon II, besieged Samaria after years of rebellion against their rule. The city falls, its walls breached, its people defeated. Assyrian records, like the Annals of Sargon II, carved on a clay prism, confirm the conquest. I besieged and conquered Samaria, led away as booty 27,290 of its inhabitants. These deportees, farmers, artisans, priests, are resettled in far-flung regions from Mesopotamia to Media, modern-day Iran. This was Assyrian policy, to uproot and scatter conquered peoples, breaking their unity to prevent rebellion. The Bible, in 2 Kings 17, echoes this, describing how the 10 tribes were replaced by foreigners who mixed with remaining Israelites, forming the Samaritans. What became of these 10 tribes? Reuben, Dan, Naphtali, and others? Some assimilated into Assyrian society, adopting local gods and languages. Others vanished from history, earning the name Lost Tribes. Legends persist. Some claim they migrated to India, Ethiopia, or even Japan, but no definitive evidence confirms their fate. Archaeological finds, like Assyrian reliefs depicting captives, show the scale of these deportations: a common tactic to control rebellious provinces. In Canaan, the northern kingdom is no more. Samaria becomes an Assyrian province, its identity diluted. But in the south, Judah, the smaller kingdom centered on Jerusalem, holds fast for now. The loss of Israel is a warning, yet Judah's kings continue to navigate a dangerous world of empires. The fall of Israel is a turning point, shows Canaan's vulnerability. Its prime location between Egypt and Mesopotamia makes it a target for empires. For the Jews of Judah, the question looms: can they avoid the same fate? The Babylonian exile Judah endures for another century, but its time runs out in 586 BC. The Babylonian Empire, under King Nebuchadnezzar II, rises as the new power in the Near East, replacing the Assyrians. Judah, ruled by King Zedekiah, rebels against Babylonian overlordship, hoping for Egyptian support. It's a fatal miscalculation. Nebuchadnezzar lays siege to Jerusalem, starving the city. The walls fall, the first temple, Solomon's sacred sanctuary, is razed, and thousands of Jews are exiled to Babylon. The Babylonian Chronicle, a cuneiform tablet, corroborates the biblical account in 2 Kings 25, noting Nebuchadnezzar's capture of Jerusalem and the deportation of its people. Excavations at Tel Ed-Dawer, likely biblical Lachish, reveal destruction layers from this period, with arrowheads and ash testifying to the city's fall. The elite priests, scribes, nobles marched 700 miles to Babylon, a journey of months across deserts and rivers. Jeremiah, a prophet, laments this tragedy in the Book of Lamentations. How lonely sits the city that was full of people. In Babylon, the Jews face a new reality. Stripped of their temple, their capital, and their land, they could have faded into history, like the lost tribes. Instead, they adapt. In exile, they gather in synagogues, early communal spaces for prayer and study. Scribes compile sacred texts, preserving stories of Abraham, Moses, and David. The Torah, the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, begins to take shape, becoming a portable anchor of identity. Ezekiel, a priest-prophet in Babylon, preaches hope, a vision of a restored Jerusalem, a new temple. Life in Babylon is not all hardship. The exiles settle in communities like Tel Aviv by the Chebar River, as described in Ezekiel. They farm, trade, and marry, building lives in a foreign land. Jeremiah urges them: build houses, plant gardens. Seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you. Jeremiah 29, 5-7. This resilience ensures the survival of Jewish faith and culture, even far from Canaan. The Babylonian exile, lasting from 586 to 538 BCE, is a crucible. It transforms the Jews from a temple-centered people to a community bound by scripture and prayer, laying the foundations for modern Judaism. The return and the Second Temple in 539 BCE, hope dawns. The Persian Empire, led by Cyrus the Great, conquers Babylon in a swift campaign. Cyrus, known for his policy of tolerance, issues a decree allowing exiled peoples to return home. The Hebrew Bible, in Ezra 1, records Cyrus' edict: "Let whoever is among you of his people go up to Jerusalem and build the house of the Lord." The Cyrus cylinder, a Persian artifact, confirms this policy, describing how Cyrus restored temples and returned captives to their lands. Starting in 538 BCE, thousands of Jews led by figures like Zerubbabel and Joshua, the high priest, return to Judah. They find Jerusalem in ruins, its walls broken, its fields overgrown. By 516 BCE, they complete the Second Temple, a modest structure compared to Solomon's grand edifice, but a symbol of renewal. The books of Ezra and Nehemiah describe this rebuilding, with challenges from local opposition and internal strife. Excavations at Jerusalem's offal reveal Persian-era pottery and seals, evidence of renewed settlement. Not all Jews return. Many stay in Babylon, thriving in communities along the Euphrates. This marks the beginning of the Jewish diaspora, scattering of Jewish communities across the world. From Mesopotamia to Egypt, those who return live under Persian rule, a relatively benign overlord compared to the Assyrians and Babylonians. They rebuild Jerusalem, restore sacrifices, and celebrate festivals like Passover, reaffirming their covenant with Yahweh. But the world is changing. In 332 BCE, Alexander the Great sweeps through the region. bringing Greek rule to Judah. The Hellenistic era introduces new ideas, philosophy, art, language that will challenge and shape Jewish identity in the centuries ahead. The return is a triumph, but it's also a new beginning. The Jews are no longer just a people of Canaan. They are a global community, united by faith and scripture, ready to face a new world. The birth of the Diaspora. The Babylonian exile births the Jewish diaspora, a network of communities beyond Canaan. In Babylon, Jews establish vibrant centers like the one at Nippur, where cuneiform tablets record their business dealings. Some migrate to Egypt, settling in places like Elephantine, where papyri from the 5th century BCE reveal a Jewish military colony with its own temple. Others spread to Persia, Syria, and beyond, carrying their faith and traditions. This diaspora is a turning point. Without a temple, Jews rely on Torah study, prayer, and communal life to maintain their identity. Synagogues emerge as gathering places, a model that will endure for millennia. The compilation of the Torah Genesis to Deuteronomy becomes a unifying force, preserving laws, stories, and the covenant with Yahweh. This shift from temple to text ensures Judaism's survival, no matter where Jews live. The diaspora is not just a scattering, it's a transformation. The Jews become a people of the book, their faith portable, their identity resilient. From Babylon to Jerusalem, they carry the legacy of their ancestors, ready to face new challenges under Greek rule. Archaeological and historical insights. Archaeology illuminates this era. The Babylonian Chronicle, found at Sippar, confirms Nebuchadnezzar's conquest of Jerusalem in 586 BCE, Lachisha's ruins, with burnt layers and arrowheads testify to the Babylonian siege. The Cyrus cylinder, discovered in 1879, supports the biblical account of Cyrus's decree. In Jerusalem, Persian era finds pottery, seals with Hebrew names, show the returnees' efforts to rebuild. The absence of direct evidence for the Exodus or the lost tribes fuels debate. Scholars like Israel Finkelstein argue that biblical accounts blend history with later theology, written during or after the exile to unify Jewish identity. Others, like Kenneth Kitchen, see parallels with ancient Near Eastern practices, suggesting historical roots. Genetic studies, such as a 2020 analysis of Canaanite DNA, show continuity between ancient and modern populations, indicating the exiles were part of a broader Canaanite cultural milieu. These finds weave a complex story. The exiles were a turning point, reshaping the Jews from a land-based people to a global community, united by faith and scripture. The first exiles, Assyrian in 722 BCE, Babylonian in 586 BCE, were a crucible for the Jewish people. Torn from Canaan, they faced loss and displacement, yet their faith grew stronger. In Babylon, they forged a new identity, rooted in Torah and prayer. The return to Jerusalem and the rise of the diaspora marked the Jews as a resilient global people. From the ashes of exile, Judaism emerged stronger, carrying the covenant of Abraham into a new era, from Canaan to the world. The Hellenistic and Roman periods. More challenges for the Jews? It's the 3rd century BCE. Judea, once called Canaan, stands at a crossroads. Under Greek rule, the land pulses with tension as Hellenistic culture clashes with Jewish tradition. The Jews fight to preserve their faith, culminating in a bold revolt that wins them independence. But freedom is fleeting. By 63 BCE, Rome's iron grip tightens, and Judea becomes a pawn in an empire's game. 2 devastating rebellions in 66 CE and 132 CE will shatter Jerusalem, destroy the Second Temple, and scatter the Jews across the world, deepening the diaspora. This is the story of resilience, rebellion, and survival in the face of overwhelming challenges. Judea, under Hellenistic rule in 332 BCE. Alexander the Great sweeps through Judea, bringing the Hellenistic world to the Jewish people. After his death, his empire fractures, and Judea falls under the Ptolemaic dynasty of Egypt, then the Seleucid dynasty of Syria by 200 BCE. The land, now called Judea, is a vibrant mix of Jews, Samaritans, and other locals. Greek culture, its language, philosophy, and custom spreads like wildfire. Cities like Caesarea and Sepphoris boast Greek-style theaters and gymnasia,
where young Jews wrestle and study study Plato alongside Torah?
This Hellenization sparks tension. Many Jews embrace Greek ideas, adopting names like Jason and attending Greek festivals. Especially traditionalists see this as a threat to their covenant with Yahweh. The Seleucid king Antiochus IV Epiphanes pushes the issue to a breaking point. In 167 BCE, he bans Jewish practices circumcision, Sabbath observance. Torah Studiond dedicates the Second Temple to Zeus, erecting a pagan altar. The Book of Maccabees, a Jewish text, describes this as the abomination of desolation. The Jews revolt. Led by Judah Maccabee and his brothers, a guerrilla movement, the Maccabees fights back. From 167 to 160 BCE, they wage a fierce campaign, defeating Seleucid armies despite being outnumbered. In 164 BCE, they recapture Jerusalem and rededicate the Second Temple, an event celebrated today as Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights. The first book of Maccabees recounts Judah's triumph. They purified the sanctuary and made a new altar. Archaeological evidence, like Seleucid coins found in Judea, confirms this period of conflict and Jewish resistance. The Maccabees established the Hasmonean dynasty, ruling Judea as an independent state by 140 BCE for a century. Until 63 BCE, the Hasmoneans govern as kings and high priests, a rare moment of Jewish autonomy. Excavations at sites like Gamla reveal fortified Jewish settlements from this period, showing a thriving, self-governing Judea. But internal divisions between Hellenized Jews and traditionalists persist, weakening the Hasmonean state. The Hasmonean period is a high point, but it's fragile. Judea's independence is caught between fading Greek power and a rising giant: Rome. Roman rule and Herod the Great in 63 BCE. Rome arrives. General Pompey intervenes in a Hasmonean civil war, capturing Jerusalem and making Judea a Roman client state. The Jews retain religious freedom but pay heavy taxes in answer to Roman governors. The Hasmonean dynasty fades, replaced by Roman-appointed rulers. In 37 BCE, Herod the Great, an Idumean with Jewish ties, is crowned king by Rome, a master builder but a ruthless ruler. Herod transforms Judea. Herod rebuilds the Second Temple into a breathtaking complex, spanning its courtyards and adorning it with white stone and gold. The Western Wall, part of the Temple Mount's retaining wall, still stands today, a testament to his ambition. Excavations at Masada, Herod's desert fortress, reveal opulent palaces with frescoes and mosaics, reflecting Roman influence. The Antonia Fortress and Herodian Quarter in Jerusalem show his urban projects. Yet Herod's reign is brutal. He executes rivals, even family members, and his heavy taxes fuel resentment. The Gospel accounts and historian Josephus describe his paranoia and cruelty. Painting a complex figure, a Jewish king serving Roman masters, under Herod, Judea prospers but chafes. The Jews practice their faith sacrifices continue at the temple. Festivals like Passover draw thousands, but Roman oversight breeds tension. Sects emerge. Pharisees emphasize Torah observance. Sadducees control the temple. Essenes retreat to desert communities like Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls are later found. The Zealots, a militant group, dream of rebellion. This fractured society sets the stage for a catastrophic clash with Rome. Herod's death in 04 BCE leaves Judea unstable. His sons rule as tetrarchs. But Roman governors like Pontius Pilate tighten control, their harsh policies stoking Jewish unrest. The First Jewish-Roman War. In 66 CE, tensions explode. Heavy taxes, Roman corruption, and religious provocations ignite the First Jewish-Roman War. Jewish rebels, led by groups like the Zealots, seize Jerusalem, expelling Roman garrisons. Rome responds with overwhelming force. In 70 CE, General Titus, son of Emperor Vespasian, besieges Jerusalem. After months of starvation and fierce fighting, the city falls. The Second Temple is burned, its treasures looted. The historian Josephus, a Jewish turncoat, claims over 1 million died and 97,000 were enslaved, though these numbers may be exaggerated. The Arch of Titus, built in Rome to celebrate the victory, depicts Roman soldiers carrying the temple's menorah and sacred vessels, a stark image of Jewish defeat. Excavations in Jerusalem's upper city reveal burned layers and collapsed walls from 70 CE, confirming the destruction. Thousands of Jews are sold into slavery, sent to Rome, or flee to North Africa, Asia Minor, and Europe, expanding the diaspora. The temple's loss is a spiritual catastrophe without it. Jewish worship shifts to synagogues and Torah study. The fall of Jerusalem is a turning point. The temple, the heart of Jewish life, is gone. Yet, the Jews adapt, relying on rabbis and scripture to preserve their faith in exile. But some hold out hope for rebellion, setting the stage for one final stand. The Bar Kokhba revolt and its aftermath in 132 CE. Hope for Jewish independence flares again. Simon Bar Kokhba, a charismatic leader, launches a revolt against Emperor Hadrian, sparked by plans to rebuild Jerusalem as Aelia Capitolina, a Roman city with a temple to Jupiter on the Temple Mount. Bar Kokhba, hailed by some as a messiah, unites Jews in a guerrilla war. For 3 years, they control parts of Judea, minting coins with Hebrew inscriptions like Year 1 of the Redemption of Israel and images of the temple. Archaeological finds like the Bar Kokhba letters found in the Cave of Letters near the Dead Sea reveal his leadership and strategy. Caves in the Judean desert, used as hideouts, contain artifacts, scrolls, sandals, coins showing the rebels' determination. But Rome's response is merciless. By 135 CE, Hadrian's legions crushed the revolt, destroying 50 fortresses and 985 villages, according to Roman historian Cassius Dio. The rebel stronghold of Batar falls, and Bar Kokhba is killed. Hadrian seeks to erase Jewish identity. He renames Judea Syria Palestina after the Philistines and bans Jews from Jerusalem, except for 1 day a year to mourn at the Temple Mount's ruins. Thousands are enslaved or killed, and survivors flee to Galilee, Babylon, or further afield. The Bar Kokhba revolt's failure marks the end of large-scale Jewish resistance in Judea for centuries. The Bar Kokhba revolt's defeat deepens the diaspora. Jewish communities grow in Babylon, Egypt, and Rome, carrying their faith across the empire. The loss of Judea, as a political center, shifts Judaism further toward scripture and community, a transformation that ensures its survival. Archaeological and historical insights. Archaeology brings this era to life. The Arch of Titus in Rome, with its vivid reliefs, confirms the temple's destruction in 70 CE, the Western Wall. Part of Herod's Temple Mount stands as a lasting symbol of Jewish endurance. Excavations in Jerusalem's Jewish quarter reveal destruction layers from 70 CE, with charred beams and shattered pottery. The Bar Kokhba letters and coins, found in the Judean desert, offer a glimpse into the rebels' hopes and strategies. The Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered at Qumran, include texts from the Hellenistic and Roman periods, showing how Jewish sects like the Essenes preserved their beliefs. Inscriptions like the Theodotos synagogue inscription from Jerusalem, dated to the 1st century CE, confirm the rise of synagogues as centers of Jewish life post-temple. Historical sources like Josephus's Jewish War and Cassius Dio's accounts provide detailed, if biased, records of the revolts. Genetic studies, such as a 2020 analysis of Canaanite DNA, show continuity between ancient Judeans and modern Jewish populations, underscoring the enduring link to the land. These finds weave a story of loss and adaptation. The Jews, scattered across the Mediterranean, transformed their faith to survive without a temple or homeland, laying the foundations for modern Judaism. From the Hellenistic clash of cultures to the Roman destruction of Jerusalem, the Jews faced relentless challenges. The Maccabean revolt won a fleeting independence, but Roman conquest and the loss of the Second Temple in 70 CE, followed by the Bar Kokhba revolt's failure in 135 CE, scattered the Jews across the world. Yet, in exile, they forged a resilient identity, rooted in Torah, synagogues, and community. Judea may have been renamed Syria Palestina, but the Jewish spirit endured, carrying the covenant of Abraham into a new era, from the ruins of Jerusalem to the far reaches of the diaspora. The diaspora and the lasting connection to the land in 70 CE. Jerusalem falls to Rome, its second temple reduced to ash. By 135 CE, after a failed revolt, the Jews are banished from their holy city, scattered across the Roman Empire and beyond. This is the dawn of the Jewish diaspora, a global dispersion that will define the Jewish people for nearly 2 millennia. Yet through centuries of exile, persecution, and adaptation, one constant endures. The land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael, remains the heart of Jewish prayers, dreams, and identity. From the ruins of Judea to the bustling cities of the Ottoman Empire, this is the story of a people uprooted, but never unmoored, forever tied to their ancient homeland. The dawn of the diaspora, the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, and the Bar Kokhba revolt as failure in 135 CE mark a turning point for the Jewish people. Emperor Hadrian's decrees banned Jews from Jerusalem, renaming Judea, Syria, Palestine to sever their ties to the land. Thousands are killed, enslaved, or forced to flee, swelling the Jewish diaspora, scattering that began with the Babylonian exile but now reaches across the Mediterranean and beyond. In Alexandria, Egypt, Jews thrive as merchants and scholars, their synagogue a hub of learning. In Babylon, communities along the Euphrates, like those at Nehardea, compile Jewish law and tradition. In Rome, Jews settle in Trastevere, facing Roman scrutiny, but maintaining their faith. Archaeological evidence, like the 1st century CE Theodotos synagogue inscription from Jerusalem and catacombs in Rome with menorah carvings, shows these early diaspora communities preserving Jewish identity through synagogues and burial practices. Life in the diaspora is a cycle of acceptance and persecution. In the Roman Empire, Jews are tolerated but often marginalized, paying the Fiscus Judaicus, a tax to fund Jupiter's temple. The Dead Sea Scrolls, hidden by the Essenes, and texts like Philo of Alexandria's writings reveal a vibrant Jewish intellectual life. Adapting to new lands while clinging to the memory of Jerusalem, the loss of the temple shifts worship to synagogues, where prayer, Torah, study, and festivals like Passover replace sacrifices. The hope of return to Eretz Yisrael expressed in prayers like next year in Jerusalem becomes a cornerstone of Jewish identity. Yet small Jewish communities persist in Palestine now, under Roman rule. In Galilee, towns like Sepphoris and Tiberias become centers of Jewish life. The Sanhedrin, a Jewish council, relocates to Yavne, where Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai establishes a school to preserve Torah learning, ensuring Judaism's survival without a temple. The diaspora is not just exilates transformation. The Jews become a people of the book, their faith portable, their connection to Eretz Yisrael unbreakable, even as they navigate a world of empires. The Talmud and the spiritual anchor. In the 3rd to 6th century CE, as the Roman Empire transitions to Byzantine Christian rule, Jewish communities in Babylon produce a monumental work, the Babylonian Talmud. This vast compilation of law, ethics, and tradition, building on the earlier Mishnah from Palestine, becomes the blueprint for Jewish life. Compiled in academies at Sura and Pumbedita, the Talmud addresses everything from Sabbath observance to marriage, ensuring Jews can live by their faith anywhere. Its pages are filled with longing for Zion, with prayers and laws tied to the land of Israel. The Talmud's influence spreads across the diaspora, from Persia to North Africa. In Palestine, the Jerusalem Talmud, completed around 400 CE, reflects local Jewish life under Byzantine restrictions. Archaeological finds, like the 5th century CE Beit Alpha Synagogue mosaic in Galilee, depict biblical scenes and Hebrew inscriptions, showing Jews maintaining their identity despite Christian dominance. The Passover Haggadah, recited annually, retells the Exodus while ending with the hope of return. El Shana Haba, Abi, Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. These texts and rituals keep Eretz Yisrael alive in Jewish hearts. Prayers like the Amidah, recited 3 times daily, face Jerusalem and plead for its restoration. The agricultural laws of the Torah Teeths, sabbatical years, are studied, even in exile, as a reminder of the land's sanctity. The Talmud and festivals become a spiritual bridge, connecting scattered communities to their homeland. Yet life in Palestine grows harder. Byzantine emperors, like Justinian I, impose restrictions banning synagogue construction, limiting Jewish rights. By the 7th century, the population of Palestine is increasingly Christian. With Jewish communities dwindling to a few thousand in Galilee and Jerusalem, the Talmud and traditions anchor the Jews, ensuring their faith endures as they face new rulers and challenges in both Palestine and the diaspora. Palestine under Muslim and Crusader rule in 638 CE, Muslim armies under Caliph Umar conquer Palestine, ushering in Islamic rule. The Umayyad and Abbasid caliphates governed for centuries, building the Dome of the Rock on the Temple Mount, a sacred site for Muslims, Jews, and Christians. Jews, as people of the book, are granted dhimmi status, protected, but taxed and restricted. Some return to Jerusalem, allowed to pray at the Western Wall, a remnant of Herod's Temple Mount, the Cairo Geniza. A trove of 10th century Jewish documents from Egypt reveals vibrant Jewish life under Muslim rule, with trade and scholarship flourishing. By the 11th century, Jewish communities in Palestine number a few thousand. Concentrated in Jerusalem, Tiberias, and Ramla, the Fatimid Caliph al-Hakim briefly persecutes Jews, but stability returns under later rulers. The 10th century Karait Synagogue in Jerusalem, whose remains were excavated, shows continued Jewish presence. Pilgrims, like the poet Judah Halevi, traveled to the land, writing verses of longing. My heart is in the east, but I am in the west. The Crusades disrupt this fragile coexistence. In 1099 CE, Christian crusaders capture Jerusalem, massacring Jews and Muslims. Jewish communities are decimated, but some survive in coastal cities like Acre. When Saladin, a Muslim leader, retakes Jerusalem in 1187, Jews are allowed to return. By the 13th century, under Mamluk rule, Jewish scholars like Nachmanides settle in Jerusalem, rebuilding synagogues. Coins and seals from Mamluk era Tiberias show a small but persistent Jewish presence. Yet Palestine's population shifts. By the 13th century, it is predominantly Arab and Muslim, with Christian and Jewish minorities. Jews face restrictions, synagogue repairs require approval, taxes are heavy, but their spiritual connection to the land endures, fueled by texts and prayers. Through Muslim and Crusader rule, Eretz Yisrael remains a beacon for Jews, a land of pilgrimage and prayer, even as the diaspora grows ever wider.
The Ottoman era.
And the Jewish minority in 1517. The Ottoman Empire, under Selim I, conquers Palestine, beginning for centuries of Turkish rule. The land, now an Ottoman province, is predominantly Arab and Muslim, with Christians and a tiny Jewish minority. By 1800, only about 5,000 Jews live in Palestine, compared to 250,000 Arabs, concentrated in Jerusalem, Safed, Tiberias, and Hebron Judaisms, for holy cities. Yet, these communities are vital, sustained by pilgrims and scholars. In the 16th century, Safed becomes a global center of Jewish mysticism. Kabbalists like Isaac Luria and Joseph Caro, author of the Shulchan Aruch, draw Jews from Spain, Portugal, and beyond. The Zohar, a mystical text, flourishes here, deepening the spiritual connection to Eretz Yisrael. Archaeological finds like 16th century synagogues in Safed and Ottoman tax records confirm this Jewish revival. In Tiberias, Jewish artisans produce textiles, while Jerusalem's Jewish quarter, near the Western Wall, is a hub of prayer and study. Ottoman rule is relatively tolerant, but Jews face challenges as dhimmis, paying the jizya tax barred from high office. Periodic violence, like the 1517 Hebron riots, and economic hardship limit growth. Yet Jews trickle back when possible, driven by religious devotion. The Aliyah of Spanish Jews, after their 1492 expulsion, brings scholars like Yosef Saragosi to Safed. Pilgrims, risking banditry and disease, visit Rachel's tomb or the Cave of the Patriarchs, tying their faith to the land. The diaspora thrives elsewhere. Europe, Jews face pogroms and expulsions, while in the Islamic world, communities in Morocco, Iraq, and Yemen endure cycles of prosperity and persecution. The Sidr, standardized prayer book, unifies these scattered Jews with daily prayers for Jerusalem's restoration. The hope of return, rooted in Abraham's covenant and David's kingdom, burns bright. Under Ottoman rule, Palestine's Jewish minority clings to Eretz Yisrael, spiritual homeland that sustains the diaspora's dreams of return. Archaeological and historical insights, archaeology illuminates this long diaspora. The Beit Alpha Synagogue's 5th century mosaic, with its zodiac and Torah ark, shows Jewish resilience under Byzantine rule. The Cairo Geniza, a 10th century archive, reveals Jewish life under Muslim caliphs' letters, contracts, and prayers tied to Jerusalem. Safe's 16th century synagogues and Ottoman tax records document the Jewish revival. The Western Wall, part of Herod's Temple Mount, remains a tangible link to the ancient past. Historical texts, like the Book of Maccabees, Nachmanides' letters, and the Zohar, reflect the enduring focus on Eretz Yisrael. Genetic studies, such as a 2020 analysis of Canaanite and Judean DNA, show continuity between ancient Jews and modern populations, particularly Ashkenazi and Sephardi Jews, underscoring the deep-rooted connection to the land. The Bar Kokhba coins, with their Hebrew inscriptions, and the Dead Sea Scrolls, highlight the persistent Jewish identity through exile. These artifacts and studies tell a story of survival. Jews, scattered yet united, preserve their faith and connection to Eretz Yisrael through texts, rituals, and memory, setting the stage for a modern return. From the Roman exile in 70 CE to the Ottoman era in 1800, the Jewish diaspora grew, facing persecution and prosperity across continents. Yet Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, remained the heartbeat of Jewish identity. Through the Talmud, Passover, and daily prayers, Jews kept the covenant of Abraham, the kingdom of David, and the memory of the temple alive. Though scattered, they were never severed from their homeland, laying the foundation for a return that would reshape history in the modern era.
That's Judaism's Birth in Canaan, Chapter 1 of Israel and Palestine, a history on the deep chapter. I'm struck by the resilience of a people forging a timeless faith tied to Eretz Yisrael. Ancient altars, clay tablets, and Torah texts reveal their enduring strength. I hope this tale sparks curiosity or brings peace. Like and subscribe to the Deep Chapter for more of this journey. Join us for Chapter 2, where kings rise and exile looms. I'll see you in the next chapter. Shalom.